Salutations, sunshines. It is Estrella here. I'm sorry if I sound a little sickish or a little scrambled. I am dealing with allergies, and I did not script this at all. But here is a speed paint of my OC Theodora, also known as Teddie, from my story Pressed Flowers. What you see on the screen here is the only up-to-date drawing I had of her. So I decided to draw another one, especially with Art Fight coming up and everything, on Rebelle 5 and make a speed paint. I chose to reference this one since I was putting in more detail off of the model Serena Matola. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. She's a model and actress from Japan. Absolutely gorgeous. There I was just tracing her basic face shape, so I had a simpler reference to look at in comparison to the really detailed photo of her while I was putting in my non-trace sketch. But yeah, she has this... I haven't seen any of her movies or anything. I really should watch some. But she has this very distinct facial structure and freckles and everything that remind me of Teddie and are like the closest thing I have to someone who looks like Teddie. I had to change the skin tone a little bit and the shape of her eyes, so like my drawing was adjusted accordingly to look like Teddie and not just this random actress. But I do think that she was a very good reference to use. And so here I start going in with the lasso tool just to put in some like flat color. I usually put in flat color before I start doing my painting. Usually I don't use the lasso tool for it, but I think it worked pretty well. I, in fact, then got carried away with just playing around with the lasso tool and doing different things with the hair, which honestly probably made my later work harder for me. But it still looked cool at the time. So when I first started doing it, I was having way too much fun with the lasso tool and considered just keeping it that way, but I'm glad I didn't. I like my finished result, but it does look fun for a bit here. As for the story and the surrounding context on like why there's a normal version of her and a purple version of her, that is her ghost. Because Pressed Flowers is a story that I've had rattling around my brain for quite a number of years now. I don't even want to think about how long. The passage of time is scary, man. But in its original incarnation, it was about these two kids, Teddie and Oliver. And Teddie and Ollie are best friends. They kind of have like that childhood version of dating going on, like when kids are just like, we can be kindergarten boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever. So they're like that for a number of years, and are super close when Teddie turns up dead. In what appears to be an accident, she drowned. And so, in the original incarnation of the story, Oliver doesn't believe that she drowned and decides to hunt down who he thinks is killing these girls. And he eventually runs into someone who he thinks is going to be the next victim and is like trying to protect her and everything while he's in like his mid-teens, right? And I still like that version of the story, and it's something that's still close to my heart, both just because of the nostalgia factor of like, oh, that's something I originally came up with, and because I did have some cool like animation and writing ideas at the time that I still think would hold up on their own. However, this thing sort of happens when you have a story like that where you don't really know what you're doing, because you don't know how on earth a kid would be hunting down this murderer, because like I'm not doubting his intelligence. I'm just there are so many things in place to prevent kids from running off across the country at this point, in search of murderers, and just different things like that. It was like I kept coming up with reasons why he would have been able to do it, but the combination of it being a really heavy concept and me trying to deliver it as seriously as possible while also having a bunch of addendums on how this child was hunting down a killer, that just sort of made this weird, like, contradictory energy come out of it. So I kind of just put it on the back burner for a while and let myself come up with different ideas. As a brief interruption from my story talk, this is me putting on the freckles, which was really fun. I was just layering a bunch of splatter brushes in like multiply effects and stuff, and then I went in to try to make the values match up with my previous reference so that her skin tone stayed pretty consistent. So I was just doing a multiply layer on that. I multiply in something else, but it worked either way. So now years after coming up with that original story, I was thinking about different alternatives I could do. There's one idea I still really like that I might go back to. That is, Oliver after the death, just not necessarily being a murderer or anything, but he's just, like, writing in a diary about his grief, and eventually her ghost starts writing, in the margins. And I think I still might go back to that one. I do really like that idea. But then, I was listening to the song Little Talks, which is such a good song. I absolutely love that song. And I started thinking about, what if I just kept the original first half of the story the same, but pushed the later stuff older? So that way, Teddy dies young, but Oliver doesn't hunt any murder or anything like that until later on. So in the newer version that I kind of also have rattling around my skull, it's Teddy dies young, and Oliver sees her ghost afterwards in the aftermath of his grief and everything for a number of years, and nobody really knows if it's just his imagination coping or if he really is seeing a ghost. But either way, as he begins to heal, her presence starts to wane a little bit, and he eventually doesn't really see her anymore. And as he gets older, he's finally in a more stable position. He still has to deal with the grief and the hurt, but he's like trying to date people again. He has a girlfriend now. He is like considering moving out of the place he's lived in all his life. Like, he's trying to make changes. And then as he's finally settling into the stability, he sees one night on the news that there was a really similar drowning happened, and some of the details just line up really weird. And the ghost shows up again, and she says, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry I'm back, and I'm sorry I lied to you, but I didn't drown on accident. I just told you that, and I let everybody believe that because I thought it was a one-time thing. But the guy who murdered me is killing people again, so I need you to find him and stop him." And now this older Oliver, who's finally trying to live a normal life, is now like thrust back into the chaos and is trying to hunt down a murderer with his semi-supportive girlfriend, who also kind of thinks he's insane. And just something about that premise, even though it's still like really heavy and has some super sad stuff going on, just felt more lighthearted to me and more like something I could put more like wholesome stuff in, and was something that I kind of thought about a lot when my mom passed. Just like this sort of like half begrudging ghost story. And yeah, it's a story that means a lot to me. I still don't know how I'm gonna do it. I might just fall back on the diary entries thing instead. But you know, I never know what I'm gonna do with my stories. I don't tend to actually write them down. I have a problem called letting all of my OCs live in my brain and never putting them on real paper. But regardless, I hope you enjoy getting this lovely look at Teddy and now her ghost, and how she appears to Oliver post-death. It was fun doing this part because I try to do different effects. The tears were originally going to be that glowy white, but I hit subtract on accident in the layers, and I thought the dark looked really cool too. So played around with that a little bit. As I was trying to put in light effects, I kept trying to do things and then going, no, because I don't want her eyes to just look blue, and I don't want it to look too over the top, because sometimes when the colors contrasted too much, it looked like poorly edited in to my original drawing, and so I went with something a little more low-key, but I do still think it looked pretty cool in the end. You can see me just playing around with different stuff here, forever immortalized in the speed paint, you know. I like what I did in a second. I did this weird duplicating thing where I like made multiple of her just sort of in the shadows, but didn't really end up in the final bit, but it is fun to see here. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the speed paint. I got this also little animation I made that it'll show in a second, and hope you enjoyed hearing me ramble. Tell me how you guys are doing. I'm sorry I haven't been around much, but I'm trying to work on more content, so wish me luck and all. Senior year of college approaches, you know? Alrighty, I'm out. What you